He was 35, a mechanic who had learned early in life that survival came before dreams. His small workshop sat behind an abandoned factory, hidden from the main road, where broken machines ended up when companies no longer believed they were worth saving. He didn't mind. To him, broken things were honest. They told you exactly what was wrong, if you were patient enough to listen. His days followed a routine shaped by necessity. He woke before sunrise, brewed cheap coffee, and unlocked the workshop door with a key worn smooth by years of use. Most jobs came from small factories, scrap dealers, or desperate owners who had been turned away by larger repair firms. He never advertised. Word spread quietly. If something couldn't be fixed, he was the man to try last. One afternoon, a convoy of black cars rolled into the yard. The mechanic wiped his hands on a rag, confused. People like this didn't come here. From the lead car stepped a woman in her early 30s, confident, impeccably dressed, eyes sharp with intelligence and authority. She was the CEO of a fast-growing manufacturing company, known for her blunt humor and impossible standards. Behind her, assistants and engineers followed, clearly uncomfortable in the dusty surroundings. Inside the workshop sat a massive industrial machine, old but complex, worth millions when it worked and useless when it didn't. The CEO explained that it powered an entire production line. It had failed suddenly, and none of her top engineers could diagnose the issue. Every hour it stayed offline cost her company a fortune. She glanced around the workshop, skeptical. Her tone was half amused, half dismissive when she spoke. She joked that if he could fix the machine by the end of the week, she'd marry him. Laughter rippled through her team. To them, it was clearly impossible. The machine was scheduled to be scrapped. The mechanic didn't laugh. He didn't react at all. He simply asked for the schematics. That surprised her. She handed them over, curious now. Something in his calm bothered her more than arrogance ever would. He studied the papers silently, then walked around the machine, listening, touching, observing like a doctor examining a patient. He asked for time, alone. Against her better judgment, she agreed. For the first time in years, the workshop became quiet. He worked without interruption for hours, tracing systems, checking pressure lines, dismantling components others had replaced without understanding. The problem wasn't obvious. It was layered, hidden behind a series of small failures that had compounded over time. The machine wasn't broken in one place. It was exhausted. That night, long after everyone left, he stayed. He slept on the concrete floor, using his jacket as a pillow. Memories crept in during the silence. His father, also a mechanic, had taught him that machines were like people. Ignore small problems long enough, and they would eventually stop working altogether. Got the chance to fix himself. By the second day, he found something the engineers had missed. A tiny structural imbalance caused by years of vibration had shifted a component by mere millimeters, enough to throw the entire system out of alignment. No software update could fix that. It required dismantling half the machine and rebuilding it by hand. He borrowed tools, improvised replacements, and machined parts himself using outdated equipment. His hands bled, his back ached. He lost track of time. The CEO returned briefly, watched from a distance, and said nothing. She expected failure. Yet something about the way he worked unsettled her. There was no panic in him, no ego, just quiet focus. By the fourth day, rumors spread through her company. The impossible machine was still in pieces. Engineers whispered that the mechanic was wasting time. The CEO joked again, telling her team not to worry, that marriage was not in her future. But when she returned late that night, she found the workshop lights still on. The mechanic was standing inside the machine, adjusting something delicate with near reverence. The smell of oil and metal filled the air. She watched silently, feeling something unfamiliar, doubt in her own certainty. On the fifth day, he asked her to come early the next morning. She arrived with her full executive team, prepared to end the experiment. The mechanic stood beside the machine, exhausted but steady. He said nothing dramatic. He simply asked her to start it. The engineers exchanged looks. Someone muttered that this was a waste of time. She nodded. The machine hesitated. A low hum vibrated through the floor. Then slowly, smoothly, it came to life. Not with strain, not with noise, but with precision. Every gauge stabilized, every system aligned. The sound was different, healthier, alive. Silence filled the workshop. The engineers rushed forward, checking readings, disbelief written on their faces. It wasn't just working. It was performing better than it had in years. The CEO felt something crack inside her chest. Pride, disbelief, admiration, all colliding at once. She looked at the mechanic, really looked at him for the first time. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't waiting for praise. He just leaned against the workbench, drained. Someone joked nervously about the marriage comment. The room laughed, but she didn't. Later that day, she asked him to join her for coffee. He almost refused. He wasn't comfortable in places where people talked more than they listened. She insisted. They sat across from each other in silence, longer than either expected. Finally, she asked why he took the job seriously when everyone else treated it like a joke. He shrugged and said he didn't know how to pretend something was impossible just because others failed. That answer stayed with her. Over the following weeks, she found excuses to visit the workshop. Sometimes she brought new problems. Sometimes she brought nothing at all. They talked about work, about loss, about responsibility. She learned he'd never finish college because he had to support his family. He learned she had built her empire alone, surrounded by people who respected her title, but rarely her as a person. The joke about marriage faded, replaced by something quieter and more dangerous: respect. She offered him a position at her company, head of mechanical restoration. He declined. He didn't want offices or politics. He wanted to fix things. So she changed the offer. She funded his workshop, upgraded his tools, and partnered with him instead. He remained independent. She trusted his judgment. Slowly, she found herself trusting him with more than machines. One evening, after a long day, they stood together watching the restored machine operate flawlessly. She smiled and reminded him of the joke she had made. He finally smiled too. Months later, when news broke that the powerful CEO was engaged to a quiet mechanic, the story spread everywhere. People called it unbelievable, a fairy tale, a publicity stunt. They didn't understand. It was never about a joke or a challenge. It was about someone who refused to walk away from what others gave up on, and someone who finally learned that strength didn't always look like control. The machine kept running. So did they.